Hello there, my lovely jewelry makers. I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how you can make your own collection of celestial headpin designs, and these will be so cute to add to different pieces of jewelry. Now of course you can make these in whatever sizes you want to. I'm just going to be showing the technique of how to do it, so if you want to learn then keep watching. So all we're going to need to make our headpins is our wire and some tools, and the wire that I'm using is a regular round silver coated copper wire. This is a 0.8mm. This is going to be for the actual headpins themselves, and then I have a 0.4mm which is going to be for one of the designs. As for the tools, I've got my flush cutters here so we can of course cut our wire, tweezers and nose pliers to help manipulate the wire, and then I'm using these chain nose pliers to also help manipulate the wire, and finally I've got my 6-step bell making pliers. Now the material list will be in the description box down below along with some useful links. Otherwise, let's get it all ready and let's get started. So the first one we're going to do is the star headpin, and then I've cut a length of wire of a 0.8mm here, and this is about 15 centimeters long. Of course you can make your headpins whatever size you want to. Then I grab my chain nose pliers here to help make the star, and I'm using these specific ones because of the size that they have at the very tip, so I make sure I get the most consistent star that I can possibly. So what I'm going to do is grab the wire and just start towards one end. I'm leaving about 5 centimeters of tail here that we're going to be working with. The rest is what's going to be the headpin, you could say, and then just going to place it at the tip of my pliers, and like I said, I'm going to use the width of the pliers themselves to actually help make the star. So first of all, the top here, that's the long end, I'm just going to gently bend that a little bit, and then the bottom part here we're making the star with, I'm going to bend against the pliers kind of in the same direction there, and not fully a 90-degree angle but close to it. And then what I like to do is, as I've made a bend, I like to go on the other side and just kind of squeeze on either side of that bend, because that just helps sharpen it up, and you can always adjust it a bit. And basically what we're doing now is making our way to the first point of the star, and then I'm going to take my pliers and put them on the other side of that bend we just made, and then the end that we're working with I'm going to push against the pliers now in the opposite direction, down like that, so we get a little point there. And again, put your pliers on the other side of that bend and just do little squeezes to kind of tighten it up, and then place it on the other side of the bend. And this is how you can start to see how I'm using the pliers. So I'm always putting the pliers all the way up against the last bend that I did there, and then using the width of the pliers and then pushing the wire against them, so I get the same length or width there in my wire every single time. And in this case here, what I want is for this angle on the wire to be the same as the one we started out with. So basically we kind of have a straight line going across, except we then have a little point added into it. And then you just want to, again, go on the other side of the bend, just do a little squeeze, just adjust anything you need to as you go. And then from there, same principle, place the pliers right on the other side of the bend. And then this is now going to make the next point. Push the wire against the pliers there so we create the point, and then again squeeze that to make the point a bit sharper. Place your pliers after that bend, push the wire away again, and this one we also want to have a straight line with the one right on the other side of the point that we just made. And you can see we have that straight line across, or we just have the point interrupting it, but otherwise we have a straight line. And from there we'll go directly on to the next point. So place the pliers after the bend, make the next point there by pushing the wire against the pliers, place your pliers on the other side of that point, and then bend the wire again against the pliers there, so we again get that straight line across. And this is basically what we're doing all the way around, using the pliers themselves as a guide to help make it as symmetrical as possible. Do the next point, and you can see we're working our way around, so we're going to get back up to the top where we started out, create the next point, tighten that up, and then we have 4 points now. And then to create the last one, what we basically need to do is collect the star here at the top. So we can just adjust anything if we need to. We can adjust the angle where we originally started, because where we placed our pliers to begin with is actually 1/2 of that top point. So what we need to do now is make the other half of that point and basically get the wires to meet back up. And then also we kind of want more or less a straight line across the bottom of the two wires there. And then I just want to bring that wire that we've been working with over the top of the other one, and then place your pliers again right after that last bend that we did. And then I want to push this wire that we've been working with straight out to the side, so it comes out like that. You can see that we have the star shape. Now we just need to connect them there at the top. So I'm going to place my pliers right over the top of the star just to hold on to the shape of it. And then I'm going to take the tail we have left here, that's going out to the side and over the top of the other wire, and then basically just bring this around. So wrap it around the long end that's sticking straight up away from the star a couple of times, and that fastens it in place. And then we can go in and cut off the excess little tail. So just flip it around to the back, cut off the excess, and then just make sure that that little end of the wire is squeezed nice and flat against the other wire, so it's not sticking out and you can feel it. And there we go, we have a finished star head pin. And of course, it's up to you how long you want to make it. It could all depend on what you want to use it for. Next, we're going to be making the moon head pin. And again, I've cut about 15 centimeters of my 0.8mm, but of course you can make it whatever size you want to. And now I'm going to use my 6-step ball making pliers here, and I'm going to use the third largest step. Of course, you can choose whatever you want to. But then I'm going to place my pliers onto the wire, again starting about 5 centimeters in from one end or so. Then, first of all, I want to shape my wire around this step on the pliers. Not all the way so we get a full circle, but to the point where they start to kind of meet each other and overlap a little bit. And then that's basically the first part of the crescent moon in place. So you can see I've added a curve into the length of wire, and one end is short and the other end is long. The long end is what's going to be the head pin itself. So what I want to just start with is grabbing onto the short end there and place my pliers at a point where that curved part kind of stops and it starts going straight again. So this is going to be, you could say, one tip of the crescent moon. And I then want to lay it so my pliers are kind of laying flat while grabbing onto the wire. And then I want to take this length of wire, the short length, and bend it back over the pliers, straight over the top of itself. So we end up with kind of a double layer like that. And now what we then want to do is tighten this up. So I like to grab hold of it the best I can, just flip it around if you need to. And then I want to place that bend that we just did, so the double wire, right at the back of my pliers and start to kind of squeeze it tighter. So basically the gap that you could see between the wires, we're closing that up so we don't have much air between them. It's almost like making a prong. And then when we have that in place, we can do the same with the other one. So again, go to the point where your wire is starting to go straight after the curve, place your pliers, and then the long end here, bend it over the pliers all the way back on itself. So again, we end up with that kind of open prong. Same principle, we just want to tighten that up. So we have something that looks a bit like that. Now what you then can do is just adjust these if you want to. So you might find that the curve is opened up a little bit or got a bit misshapen. You can just grab onto the very tip where we made the bend and kind of curve it back inwards if you need to. And then what I'm going to do is make sure to open up the wire down here a little bit, making sure this is the long end that we're now using. Because now what we need to do is, using this long end, we need to make kind of the back part of the crescent. And I'm just going to do this by hand. So I like to hold onto the part we've already made and then grabbing the wire a little bit further out and then bringing it around. And I'm going to make sure it then comes underneath the other length. We want to make sure we then get a nice curve in this wire. And this is going to obviously be larger than the curve we made initially with the pliers, but it's really up to you how you want this to look. So keep bringing it around, bringing a nice curve into it so we can start to see we get that crescent shape, and just bring it back up so the wires basically meet up there at the top again. And that's actually, you can see now we have the final crescent shape. And when you're happy with it, we just need to finish off the wires. So at the top here, the long end that we just used to make the back part of the crescent, I'm just going to grab onto the point where these two wires overlap and then put a bend into it, going straight upwards away from the piece, something like that. And then from there, we need to then use the short length here to wrap around the other one to obviously fasten everything in place. So just put your pliers however you need to make sure everything keeps its shape nicely, and then just start bending the short length around the long length and wrap it around a couple of times and make sure the wraps are nice and tight. And then we can just go ahead and cut off the excess. So flip it to the back, cut off the end there, and again just make sure that that end is pushed in and tucked away nicely so it's not going to catch or scratch on any skin or clothes or anything. And then you can flip it around, and there we have our final crescent head pin. And of course you can make this whatever size you want to. You can just start making the initial curve smaller or larger. And finally we're going to make our sun head pin to complete the celestial head pin set. For this I've cut a length of about 10 centimeters of the 0.8mm, but again you can make it whatever size you want to. And then I have a length of about 20 centimeters of the 0.4mm. So starting out with the 0.8mm wire here, all we're going to do with this is make a wrapped loop. So I'm going to put my tweezers pliers towards one end, and it doesn't need to be more than a couple centimeters in from the end, just enough to make the wrapped loop with. Just put a bend into it, and then from there I'm going to grab my 6-step bell making pliers, and I'm just using the second smallest step, placing them on the bend that we made, and then the short end here I'm going to push back around the pliers all the way so we create a full circle and overlapping itself. So we end up with something like that, and then I'm going to grab my tweezers pliers again and place them on the circle so we make sure it stays in place. Then I'm just going to use the short little tail to wrap around the long end of wire so we get that wrapped loop, and then we can go in and cut off the excess, flip it to the back, cut off the tail, and again just make sure to push that end in so it's not sticking out. And then here we have the base in place. So we just made a basic wrap loop now. Now what we want to do is bring in the length of 0.4 mil. So I'm just going to place this sideways, and I want to attach this length of wire first of all, and I'm just going to be focusing on the actual loop here that we made. So I'm just going to put the end of the 0.4 mil down through the loop, just leave a short little tail to hold onto there. Then I want to wrap this around the wire that's creating the loop. So I'm coming up through the loop there and pulling that tight, and we're just going to do that again. So bring it up through the loop and pull the wire tight. So create little coils around the base wire there, and make sure that these wraps are laying flat next to each other. Now I've done 2 full wraps here. Then what I'm going to do is bring in my chain nose pliers again, because again I'm going to be using the actual size of the pliers to help me make this as symmetrical as possible. So I'm making sure as well that my wraps are pushed all the way up towards where the loop starts. Now what we want to do is place our pliers on this 0.4 mil wire where we then want to put in a bend. So I'm going to be using the width of the pliers, and I like to kind of push them first of all the way up against the base wire. And this one I want to do 1.5 width of the pliers. So first of all place it all the way up to the base wire, and then move outward about half the width. And then I take the 0.4 mil wire and bend it against my pliers, so bring it downwards here behind them, and from there bring it up through the loop again. So we're still kind of coiling around the base wire in the loop just like before, but we're now just kind of creating a little space with some of the wires sticking out from the loop. And just make sure we then have something that looks a bit like that. So you can see we have a bend in the 0.4 mil wire, and then from there we need to go back to coiling around the base wire in the loop, but obviously making sure that that bend or little point that we made just now stays where it is. So just bring the weaving wire back around, and then when you feel like it's secure enough to put the pliers to the side, and then just bring the wire up through again. So we're again back to coiling around the base wire, and make sure every time you do that it's pushed nice and tight. Come up once, we need to come up through again to get the same amount of wraps that we have in the beginning. So we want 2 full wraps between each of these points that we're making. And now that I have those 2 full wraps, I want to grab my chain nose pliers again. I want to make the next ray of sunshine, and this one I want to be a bit larger. Now of course you can make the size of yours however you want to. You can also make them all the same size, but what I'm then going to do is use 2 widths of the pliers. So again place them all the way up against the loop, and then from there go out 1 full width, and then bring the weaving wire down behind the pliers, come up through the loop, and then just bring it around the base wire in the loop. So we kind of fasten this in place, and from there we can just hold it without the pliers, come up through the loop again. So that's 1 full wrap, and then come up through 1 more time. So we have our second full wrap, and we're now in position to make the next ray of sunshine. So this one again is going to be a shorter one, so I'm going to be alternating by short, long, and so on all the way around, just to create a bit of a different effect. But of course, like I said, you can do whatever you want to. So again, this one, a shorter one, I'm going to use 1.5 width of the pliers. So 1 and go out half the width, bring the wire down behind, and then come up through the loop straight away, and make sure to wrap it around the base wire. And then we need to do the extra wraps, come up through the loop once and twice, and then we're in a position for the next ray, which is going to be a longer one. Bring the wire down behind, up through the loop, and you basically just want to keep going like this, making your way all the way around, making sure we do the 2 wraps in between each of the rays here to get them also at an even distance from each other until we reach back up towards the top there. And now I made the last ray there. Then I just want to, like the other times, go through the loop to kind of secure it in place. So we're just wrapping around the base wire by itself, and then we have all the rays in place here with the 0.4 mil. Now what I'm then going to do is just leave the tails of the 0.4 mil, because if you want to add a bead you can use one of those. But before I do anything like that, I want to just take my tweezers and nose pliers here, and then we need to start twisting the rays of sunshine here to make them more stable. And then we're just going to start from one side and move our way around. So the very tip of my tweezers and nose pliers here, I just want to grab onto the very tip of the ray that we want to twist and grab onto it, and then you literally want to start twisting this as if you're just twisting 2 lengths of wires together. So we get something a bit like that, and then you want to move on, do the same with the next one. Place the very tip of the pliers onto the very tip of the ray, do your twist, and just twist until it's evenly twisted all the way from the loop, and it has a nice twist all the way to the end. So something a bit like that. So obviously that's a bit longer than the first one. You can kind of see the difference nicely now. Just keep moving your way around, and you just want to do this with all of the rays all the way till we get back up to the top on the other side. So it looks a little something like that all the way around. So you can see they're much more defined now. Now if you want to add in a bead, this is where I then want to grab one of my lengths of the 0.4 mil that we haven't finished off yet, and then literally just take whatever bead you want to add. In this case I'm just using a 3mm bicone just to add some sparkle, and then let it go all the way down, and it's going to sit right there basically in the center of the loop that we made. And then to fasten it, I'm going to bring the wire down through the loop from the front to the back here, and then that bead is going to act as a stopper. And then what we want to do is bring the wire around the outside of the loop and then come back through the bead, but now in the opposite direction, and then just pull it all the way through. So the 0.4 mil here is going to catch around the loop on the bottom, and the wire is just going to blend in with all the wraps that we did around the loop anyway, so don't worry about that. And then back here at the top we just have the 2 tails left that we need to finish off. So just make sure that it's wrapped around the base wire, because then we can go in and cut off the excess. And then just make sure that that little end of the wire is tucked in so it's not sticking out. And of course do the same with the other one. And our celestial headpin collection is now complete. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial for how you can make your own headpins in some cute celestial designs. Now I have a previous video where I did some other headpin designs, so you can check that out as well if you like this one. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.